What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are talking sword and sorcery movies today. I have pulled off 13 movies off my shelf over here. I'm going to be going through and showing the best sword and sorcery releases that we have on Blu-ray and 4K, or at least I have. There may be some more out there that you guys can let me know about in the comments section, but I'm going to show off what I've got, and we're just going to go through and talk a little bit about the genre of sword and sorcery today. I've been on a big sword and sorcery kick lately, really the last couple of years, because we have been getting some awesome releases from the boutique labels, and pretty much everything I'm talking about today is going to be from a boutique label. So we've got some Arrow Video, we've got some Imprint, we've got some Shout Factory, a little bit of that, Vinegar Syndrome, all kinds of different labels that we're going to cover in this video. And I figure we have to start with this one right here at the top, Arrow Video. This really kicked off this whole mood that I've been in for the last couple of years. We got this Conan Chronicles from Arrow Video, this big double feature box set, both Conan films. They also have individual box sets for each film if you only like the first film, or maybe if you only like the second film. I don't know if anyone like that exists out there. But I went ahead and got both films, and I found this at Barnes & Noble in the store, live, out in the wild, and I'm very lucky to still have Barnes & Nobles near me that still carry physical media and still carry the boutique labels like Criterion and Arrow Video. And this kind of kick-started the whole thing. I picked this up in store and I watched it at home with a couple of friends, and we had a really great time, and we kind of kept going with it. We also watched a couple of the other movies in this list that we're going to go through. So I've just been in a mood for a while. Sword and sorcery is a genre that I've been into kind of my whole life. Well, I've been into fantasy my whole life. I started reading fantasy books at a young age, specifically like high fantasy, like Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, and a few other series over the years, R.A. Salvatore, that kind of stuff. But we're talking specifically the genre, the subgenre, I guess, of sword and sorcery, which is more related to like pulp fiction and like pulp genres. It's kind of similar along the same vein as like pulp sci-fi, pulp crime novels, all that early like 20s and 30s pulp magazines. That is where sword and sorcery comes from, really kicked off by Howard's Conan, which is, most people would, I think, agree that he kind of created the genre, which is really cool that later on in the 80s, it is his adaptation, Conan, that would eventually kick off the whole sword and sorcery film movement, the cinematic movement of sword and sorcery. So sword and sorcery movies are kind of pulp novel-esque. They're much smaller stakes. They're personal stories, mostly just like revenge stories about single characters or maybe a little ragtag band of characters. They're not Lord of the Rings. They're not these big epic tales of good and evil with all of these stakes and this massive scope. So sword and sorcery is kind of a smaller genre. So you're not going to see Lord of the Rings today. You're not going to see The Hobbit, those kinds of films. You're going to see Conan style stories. So that's what we're going to start with. Right here we have Conan, the double box set, and inside, I'll go ahead and show these off real quick. Like I said, I went ahead and got the double feature, because if I'm gonna get, I like a big chunky box set. You got a poster for each film, and then you've got both films in there. If I'm gonna pick these up, I kind of just want to get one on the shelf. I don't need to get two different releases, but these are 4Ks. Most of the things we're gonna talk about today, actually, almost all of the things we're talking about today are 4K. That's what I'm saying. We've been getting like a big boom of these 4K restorations of sword and sorcery stuff. You've also got art cards in there. So there's Conan the Destroyer and Conan the Barbarian. So that really kicks it off, the whole genre in the 80s. I think that's 1982. And then we have Conan the Destroyer, which is the second film, different director. That is directed by Richard Fleischer. And the reason I'm calling that out is because we also just got this release. This is Red Sonja, which is also directed by Richard Fleischer, also stars also stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he's not Conan. He's playing a different character. And he is kind of a side character in this film, which just came out earlier this year. And this, I would say, is on the level of Conan the Destroyer. I should say Conan the Barbarian, great film. I had never seen it. I missed it growing up. I wasn't allowed to see R-rated movies as a kid, and I just never got around to seeing it. And finally, because of that Arrow release, I was able to see it in beautiful 4K quality. It's a great movie. It holds up. Very fun movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger is great in his role that he plays in that. The sequel, not so much. Kind of a step down. More kind of kiddie fare, I would say. And this is kind of like that. This feels, I mean, it's the same director, and it feels very similar. He's even got a kid's sidekick. Ernie Reyes Jr. is in this from Ninja Turtles 2. But he's a kid in this. He plays this like obnoxious prince character. I wonder if I can see him. There she is. There's Red Sonja right there. And where is Ernie Reyes Jr.? There he is. Look at him getting himself into trouble. Everybody hates him. He has a little bit of a mini character arc, but this is very similar to the second Conan movie where he's got he's got a little ragtag team of warriors in that movie, and she's got the same thing here, usually like some kind of monk character with a staff, and then the little kid prince. There's usually like a standard collection of characters that you would get in like a sword and sorcery, and they're usually like warriors, or not like the standard high fantasy collection where you would get like a dwarf and an elf and all of that. But similar story. She's just getting revenge after her village has been destroyed, which is basically the premise of most of these films. But this is a really nice release, and as always, Arrow goes all out for their special features. Like, this thing is loaded with special features. I can show you the back of this slipcover that has them all listed right there. Very a huge deep dive into Red Sonja of all things. I was not crazy about the movie, but it does have a cool look to it. There's a lot of walking in sword and sorcery movies. You got to get back to the evil king or queen that you're trying to get revenge on. So there's a lot of landscape shots and like some interesting special effects here and there. Does not hold up as well as the first Conan, but I did have a good time watching it. It would have been more fun if I had watched that one with other people. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to watch that one with the same group of friends that I watched the first two Conan movies with. But moving along, this is kind of a stretch, but I did want to include it because it also just got a release this year. It is not, I actually think it is sword and sorcery, but it's a little murky because it has the King Arthur myth, legend kind of aspect to it as well. But I feel like the movie itself is very sword and sorcery, very dirty, very grungy, very violent, feels very similar. So I'm going to throw it in here, and it is Excalibur, which, like I said, feels very much like a sword and sorcery movie, definitely qualifies, but it's based on the Arthurian myth, the Arthurian legend, which is a nice little spin on it. So if you're familiar with that, and this goes through everything. This is like, you got to strap in for this one. This flies through every single myth. It crams it all in there, and you gotta hold on. Like, Arthur is the kid. He's pulling the sword out. Next thing you know, he's a full-grown king. He's a man, and then Lancelot's there already, and Guinevere, and then we would jump ahead to Percival. Like, we're getting everything crammed into this thing. It is a crash course, and I am not. I'm not super knowledgeable about Arthurian legend. Luckily, I watched it with a friend of mine, one of the same guys, and he is a very, very into King Arthur myth, and he's actually writing a play right now about King Arthur. So he was there to kind of walk me through and catch me up. But look at this, look at that. Patrick Stewart is in this. It's got a great cast. This guy looks like Paul Giamatti, but he is not. This is a huge book too. Like, you get, Arrow Video is so good at this. Like, and I will say the production of this movie, if you can get in there, if you can lock in, it's a fun ride. But I feel like it will lose a lot of people because it's bananas some places. And the evil the evil wizard character in this, he is going for it. I feel like he's doing a different accent in every scene. It's what am I saying? It's Merlin. Why did I call him an evil wizard character? It's Merlin. He doesn't seem like Merlin. No, he's unlike any Merlin you've ever seen. So I had to throw in Excalibur in there because I watched it very recently for the first time. As you know, like I didn't grow up with a lot of this stuff, so these boutique labels are really a way for me to play catch up on a lot of stuff I missed, and I like diving in to these boutique label releases and not only getting to watch the movie finally, but also diving into the dozens and dozens of special features on here, which again are listed right there. I'm kind of going quick through these because I got a lot to talk about, but this is just kind of an overall video, a catch-all video to show you some really cool releases. And I'm especially going quick through these because most people are familiar with these ones. These are the big ones that have just come out recently. We're going to go back and to get into a little bit some releases that came out further back and some releases from other countries, the UK, Australia. And speaking of, let's go ahead and dive into these two, because these two just came out recently as well, but my American viewers may not be as familiar with these. We have the Beastmaster and the Sword and the Sorcerer, and these go perfectly together. These were both released at the same time. These are Imprint Films releases. These are big film releases because this is spine number 501 and 502. Imprint is already in the 500s. These were, I like that Imprint does this. They'll release like a batch, like 2 films or 3 films that go together, and they'll release them at the same time. A lot of labels do that, but this is an example for Imprint of releasing 2 Sword and Sorcery movies together, right next to each other. And let's go ahead and start with Beastmaster. I want to start with Beastmaster, another film I've seen recently as an adult, and surprisingly similar to Conan the Barbarian. And I guess Red Sonja, again, we have a protagonist whose whole entire village is destroyed, and he's just going to get revenge on the whole village. I will say this is I think, quite a step up from Red Sonja. I think this is closer to Conan the Barbarian. Not as good, does not have nearly the budget, anywhere near the budget of Conan the Barbarian, so that has a step up there. But I think I don't know, for some reason I found this one really charming. It's a very similar premise, except he can talk to animals. I shouldn't bury the lead. First, he can talk to, because of some weird circumstances during his birth involving another animal that was also giving birth that he was transported to, and a bunch of evil witches. There's actually like 3 witches. It's very like Shakespearean that were involved in his birth. But anyway, you don't really need to know all that. It's a guy who can talk to animals, and he's going on a quest for revenge. So he has this black tiger that travels around with him. He also has an eagle that flies around. You can see through the eyes of the eagle. And he also has 2 pet ferrets that run around and can like steal stuff for him, I guess. I don't know. They're not all that helpful, but they do save him a couple times. So this one's fun, and I would say, I would almost say appropriate for like family viewing, and maybe it is. There is one scene of nudity that pops up. There's nothing sexual related to it or anything. It's just kind of this, it's the first time he sees the female love interest. She's like under a waterfall, and it's just showing that she's like a slave girl and has like bruises on her and stuff. But other than that, surprisingly tame for what it is. I think the director had done like a very low budget horror film before this, and then he got a little bit of a bigger budget, and instead of doing a slight step up, he went for it and did this huge swing and did this massive epic, I think it's 2-hour plus sword and sorcery film. But I will say this is a fantastic release from Imprint. Not only do you get a steelbook inside, which is just glorious, just beautiful steelbook. I should have been showing you this while I was blabbing about the movie instead of just talking, but it is a 3-disc steelbook. You've got a 4K right there and 2 Blu-ray discs over here. Now this is, and I'll show you real quickly another comparison to this. There's no booklet on this, which is kind of a bummer. I just showed you Red Sonja, Excalibur, all the Arrow releases got these massive booklets with essays. I love that. That's personally my favorite. For this, they just have a poster. It's a huge poster. It's not an Arrow video poster. It is like a full-size, like high-quality poster. Actually, it's not a full-size poster. I take that back. It is bigger than an Arrow Video poster, though. It's pretty big, and it's double-sided, and it's got the original American poster and also has the Japanese poster. So that's pretty cool, but I would much prefer a booklet. I would much prefer to get some writers in here to give some thoughts on Beastmaster, because it is fun, and it is an important part of the kickoff of Sword and Sorcery in cinema, because this came out also 1982, same year as Conan. So this has no influence from the Conan movie. The similarities between it are very interesting because it's coming out the exact same year. I will show you this as well because I do have this version. I want to show you the Vinegar Syndrome release for Beastmaster. This is part of their VSU line. It is the same film, obviously. This is where the 4K restoration comes from. Vinegar Syndrome did the 4K restoration, and then Imprint just borrows it for their release. So it's not a new restoration. I'm sure they did author the discs themselves. But here we go. This is what the Vinegar Syndrome VSU looks like. This is really cool. This is actually VSU number 1. This is the first VSU. So it comes with a slipcover in there. And it does come with a book, which I have read through, and it is rather nice. That's where I learned a lot of the information about this movie. And then inside, you've got some really cool artwork. So this is awesome. Unfortunately, this is out of print already. So you're gonna have to go to eBay and pay some secondhand prices for that one, some aftermarket prices. So that's unfortunate. But if you did miss out on the Beastmaster VSU, this one is still in print. So if you missed out on that one and you still want to get this, or if you just prefer steelbooks, if you're just a steelbook fan, you can go ahead and grab this one. And then also, I want to shout out the other imprint release, The Sword and the Sorcerer, which is even more low budget than the Beastmaster, but still I found very charming. And this is one that I got to watch with my little Sword and Sorcery group of friends, and it was a lot of fun. So what's he has this crazy sword in this. There is a sword. There's a sorcerer as well. It's just the bad guy. That's basically what you get. You get a sword, you get a sorcerer. It's a crazy sword with like 3 blades. This is like guys in their basement making a movie almost, like especially the villain. This one, you really gotta love the genre to really dive into this one. It also comes with a big old high quality poster for Sword and Sorcerer. And this is also borrowing a previous restoration. There was already a 4K restoration done by Shout Factory, I think. And then Imprint borrowed it. But I gotta say, this one's fun though. I don't want to downplay it too much. I just don't want to get your expectations up too high because it is very low budget. Guys with swords like kind of running around and kidnapped princess, save the princess, fight with swords. it's very I don't know. It's charming though. Just to see guys just like making a little movie. And it's a 4K and I think it's a Blu-ray disc. Yes, Blu-ray disc in there. But we got again another beautiful steelbook from Imprint. So if you're a steelbook fan, or again, if you missed the previous release, so I think Shout Factory released it in the UK. Also, 101 Films released it, and this is the first way I owned it and the first way I watched it. There's the princess, and you got your warriors. There's the evil demon sorcerer guy, and there's the sword. There's the crazy sword with 3 blades. So originally we got this release from 101 Films. First we got the Shout release, then we got the 101 Films release. Comes with some art cards. Does come with the booklet. Does come with the poster. Look at this gnarly scene with these kind of deceased zombie-like people. It feels like, this one feels the most like an underground horror film that you would find at like Vinegar Syndrome or something like that. But here it is. You get this little, you used to get this little like Skenevo case, like a Criterion case, and there's the 3 discs. But Imprint has condensed it down to just 2 discs, and they released it with a beautiful steelbook. So that one is still in print. If you missed the 101 Films, the Shout may still be in print. You may be able to just get the Shout Factory release, but if you love a beautiful looking steelbook, this looks great. I mean, I can't fault it for that at all. So that is the Beastmaster and the Sword and the Sorcerer. I already owned these two versions from a couple years ago when they were released, but I did want to go ahead and showcase the imprint versions for you guys in case you missed those original ones. So thank you to Imprint Films for sending those my way. And I should go ahead and give a shout out to Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble sent me the Red Sonja release to showcase for you guys. And I got to give a special shout out to a subscriber, Tad Doyle, who is the one who sent me Excalibur. He said he was having a film club and they had just watched Excalibur and he thought that it would be something that I would really enjoy. And he was right. So he sent that to me. Thank you so much, Tad, for sending that. Had a good time watching that with my buddy Evan, who I mentioned earlier. Let's keep going. We've still got plenty of movies to talk about in this video. And we are going to go right into Legend, which is definitely stretching the rules a little bit. I don't know if this technically qualifies as Sword and Sorcery. I think it's more just dark fantasy in general, but it's another Arrow video release, and I put it on the shelf next to all of my other Arrow fantasy movies. It feels very similar. So I'm going to throw it in here. This is Legend, dark fantasy movie starring a very young Tom Cruise and an incredible villain. This guy right here, this Satan character, played by, why can't I think of his name right now? Plays Pennywise. What is his name? Tim Curry. Tim Curry plays the villain, and he gives a great performance in this. I've only seen this once, unfortunately. It's a Ridley Scott film, but I remember being really taken with it. I think it has such a good look to it. It's one of those ones you either go with or you don't, and I know a lot of people don't like this movie. I had a good time with it. And I have thought about it ever since, and I want to go back to it and give it another watch and see if it grows on me, or if it maybe loses a little bit of its charm on a second viewing. But I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping I like it even more. There's some art cards in there and everything. This is one I had to track down afterwards. It was already out of print by the time I started collecting Arrow stuff, but it's got the full thing. It's got the whole booklet in there. Just tons of writings, essays, behind the scenes photos, and a beautiful cover. I'm going to show that again. So similar trappings to Sword and Sorcery. You've got a unicorn, you've got very similar characters, but I would say this is more of a dark fantasy film than Sword and Sorcery. But like I said, I wanted to go ahead and throw it in there in case you didn't know about the Arrow video release of Legend, because it's in a similar category and it looks great on the shelf next to the other ones. So that is Legend, and I got to give that one a rewatch soon, hopefully. This one definitely is a Sword and Sorcery movie through and through. It is released from Paramount. It's a studio release, but it is kind of a studio boutique-esque release. It's a steelbook. I've got several steelbooks to talk about here, so we're kind of bridging the gap between studio and boutique releases for the next few. But this is Dragon Slayer, a movie I didn't even know about at all. I feel like a lot of people didn't know about this until recently. With this 4K release, it kind of made headlines in people's feeds because Guillermo del Toro came back and did a commentary on this disc because he really enjoys this movie. And I wish I had grown up with this movie as well because it is awesome. This is one of my favorites. This is up there with Conan for me, towards the top of the list, and another film that we'll talk about in a little bit. Another one I didn't grow up with but wish I had. It's got this really nice slipcover that goes over the top of it. And there's the back. You don't see steelbooks with slipcovers like this very often. It's usually just a translucent slipcover or nothing at all. This is a nice release that Paramount did. And look at this steelbook. Good grief. Look at that. We are 3 for 3 with just gorgeous steelbooks. For some reason, Sword and Sorcery lends itself to really nice steelbooks. There's the inside. Not much going on there, just a disc. Feature film and special features all on one disc. You get that commentary. It's a studio release. Not great. You're not going to get a booklet. You're not going to get art cards. You're not going to get any of that stuff. But I am at least happy that a movie like this got such a fantastic release. This is a little bit different than anything else we've talked about because it's about a young man, kind of a King Arthur type. He's like a young squire. I think he's actually a young magician, like trying to learn magic from this wizard. wizard disappears and he has to go on his own quest, like a little mini hero's journey. Like I said, again, very small stakes still. It's not the end of the world. It's just like this one little village that's being terrorized by a dragon, and he has to go up against it. And there's a kind of princess character that's he's interacting with, and it's getting put into peril. Very, very similar story across the board. But this one, I would say, I know I've used the word charming too much in this video already, but this one, most of all, I think has the most charm out of any of these. It feels, all the practical stuff, the practical dragon. There is like some stop motion in the last, like the finale, but most of the dragon is like a practical dragon, and really, really nice. Really, really, really good use of special effects in Dragon Slayer. That's Dragon Slayer. Don't confuse it with Dragonheart, which is our next release right here, which is another steelbook and another 4K restoration, I should say. Dragon Slayer was a 4K. Everything we've talked about so far is a 4K, and Dragonheart also got a 4K. This is from Shout Studios. Shout Factory released this. Pretty meager steelbook here. This is the lamest one of any of the things we've looked at. It's just that little poster image on the front, and then just nothing on the back, just solid black on the back. But this is one of my personal favorites. This is the only one I saw growing up. My friend of mine and his dad were big into, they're probably one of the main reasons I got into fantasy, was because of them showing me this movie at a very young age. And they also showed me the sequel, Dragonheart New Beginning, which is not great, and I wouldn't hold your breath for a 4K of that. But this, I think, holds up great. Haven't seen it in a long time, so don't take my word for it, but I at least want to watch it again. So at least I have fond memories of that. Hopefully it holds up great. It's Dennis Quaid. He is a dragon hunter, and he goes around and takes out all the dragons, and there's only one dragon left. And I won't tell you why he does that, and I won't tell you what happens after that, but he forms a relationship with the last dragon, and it's kind of like it's kind of like a buddy cop movie with a dragon, played by Sean Connery. I mean, what more do I need to say? That's amazing. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen Dragonheart, it's a lot of fun, and it was pretty. I mean, I don't know if I should say groundbreaking, but it was pretty impressive for the time in the 90s. Full CG dragon in like broad daylight. It blew our minds as a kid. I mean, now of course it doesn't hold up very well, so I wouldn't get your hopes up. But at the time, pretty cool. Pretty cool. I'm going to jump right into another one that I saw as a kid. Also got a 4K recently. I took forever to buy this because I waited and waited and waited for the price to finally come down, because Disney steelbooks are insanely expensive. I also had some Amazon points, and I finally just was like, I'm going to do it. It's Willow. Willow, the 4K, released, I think, last year. I'm way behind on this one, but one that I also watched recently with the same group of friends, and another fun one to watch with friends. This is a Ron Howard film, but feels very much influenced. I mean, it's a George Lucas kind of production. I feel like he was involved as a producer. This one, again, kind of toes the line a little bit. It's kind of feels like a Hobbit or a Lord of the Rings, but it does feel very kind of grungy and dirty and smaller in scale, and it's just kind of like this personal vendetta of this like witch against little Willow, and specifically the baby that Willow is trying to save. But there is a little bit of kind of destiny, and like she's a chosen child, so it's a little grander. But I think because of the production and because of the way the story ends up going, it does feel squarely in the sword and sorcery genre. It gets pretty brutal at the end with those witches just battling out in the castle, fighting each other. But a film that gets very silly. It feels very similar to Legend, with some of the comic relief characters that I feel like were forced into these movies during this period after a certain time. Like, you don't have that early on with Conan, but like as it went on, we started putting these annoying kind of comic relief characters in these movies, unfortunately. And this is a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. It does not stick the landing, but if you see this as a kid, it's wonderful. And I intend to show this to my kids soon, soon. They're not old enough yet, but at sometime soon. I'm sure my daughter will be ready for it right now. Like, she loves this kind of stuff, but I'm gonna wait till she's a little bit older. Willow and Dragonheart, those will be ones that I show the kids, and Dragon Slayer, not too long after that. Obviously Conan and Excalibur, way later. But yeah, that's another fun one that is very similar. Most people are probably familiar with Willow. Probably didn't need to spend that much time on that one. This one you might not be familiar with, and this is the first one on the list that we've talked about that I have not seen. I'm not familiar with this one, but this is the most recent release that I have in the video today. It's Croll. Croll! This is how deep we are into this 4K Sword and Sorcery Renaissance right now. We're getting to Croll. This is the 4K Steelbook of Croll that came out this year. Look at that. That looks like straight up a ripoff of the Legend poster on the back there. Even the front looks very similar to the Legend poster. This is Croll. And you might say, what are you talking about? This looks like Star Wars. This is a sci-fi thing. It is. This is a weird one. And it's hard to qualify this one. But it feels very, once you get into it, it takes place like, I don't know. It's like a medieval world that, from what I know about it, it's like a medieval times world, but then it gets invaded by aliens, and then they just go on like a regular quest. They're walking through the woods with a wizard. They're doing very sword and sorcery things. He just has this one alien weapon that he uses, this little like star laser beam thing. But if you watch the movie, and I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but it feels very much like a sword and sorcery thing. It was like Star Wars came out and they were like, ooh, we want that, but we're just gonna put it in this kind of medieval fantasy world. So it's definitely inspired by that, but it feels very similar to the rest of the stuff on this list. So I went ahead and included it, and I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it. Hopefully I can get some friends over that are interested and I can watch it with them, because it might be one that you need friends and booze to get through. But that is Croll. We're really getting to the bottom of the barrel at this point. By the time we get to this point in the 80s, the sword and sorcery well was starting to dry up, even though we did get a few later on, like Dragon Slayer and Dragonheart, that I think are pretty good later, even up into the 90s. But there was hits and there was misses. And Croll, I think from everything I've heard about it, is a pretty mixed bag. Maybe I'll finish watching it and I'll like it a lot, and I'll change my tune on it. But that is Croll. And then I'm also gonna shout out this one, an animated film, the first animated film we've talked about in this list, and this is The Last Unicorn, which is a Rankin and Bass movie. So, you know, if you've seen the Rankin and Bass Christmas specials, this is not going to look anything like that, because this is a 2D animation film. This is not stop motion, but it looks a lot more like their Hobbit film and their Lord of the Rings film. Not the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings film, but their Return of the King film that they did. This is this style, and this is great. I think I really like the Hobbit film that they did. This, though, is so unique, and I think maybe the best thing Rankin and Bass ever made. As someone who has seen a lot of the Christmas specials, because I watch them with the kids every year, and they release that big Blu-ray set with all of them. They're not great. They're kind of hard to watch, especially all in a row at Christmas time. This, though, I will watch over and over with my daughter, and she loves this one. And it's pretty dark, it's pretty serious, but it's also just beautiful to look at. The animation is great. It is about the last unicorn, and she is, I don't even know how much I want to say about it, but there's a villain here who is kind of in the similar vein as Dragonheart, going around and trying to hunt down all the unicorns. And this is just a very simple story. She kind of has her own little group that she travels around with. Another little protege wizard who's trying to find his own way, and they go on this little quest, and they bump into a lot of interesting characters along the way, and some terrifying characters along the way. The harpy scene is horrifying. The bull scene at the end, it's pictured right here. This is a beautiful steelbook, by the way. Really, really like this. This is another Shout Factory steelbook. They did a way better job on this one than the Dragonheart steelbook. I really like this one. This is one I've watched a lot. Like I said, my daughter loves it. This has a 80s synth song, theme song at the beginning that rivals the Neverending Story theme song. It's great, and my kids love it, and they want to listen to it, and they want to watch it. So I had to throw that in there. It's definitely, it's not like Conan. There's not like a big sweaty man running around with a sword. So it's a little less sword and sorcery than the other stuff we've talked about, but it was tangential enough that I wanted to include it. Speaking of animation, we're getting down to the really obscure ones here. This is another animated film and another one that I haven't seen yet, but I did want to go ahead and throw it in here because it was in the recent Vinegar Syndrome sale that Barnes & Noble was having. This is a Shudder release. It's called Spine of the Night. The Spine of Night, I put the in the wrong place. The Spine of Night. This, speaking of Ralph Bakshi, is kind of a throwback to that period of rotoscoped animation. It's a Shudder original film. It was originally released by Yellow Veil from Vinegar Syndrome as a partner label, but now I think it has its own Shudder release. And there's even a steelbook of this one too, which I don't have yet, but it got a 4K. And it does actually include the booklet, even though I bought it from Barnes & Noble. It does actually include the booklet. It's got both discs in there. Haven't had a chance to watch this one yet because it was a very recent acquisition, but I'm hoping that I really like it because I like rotoscoped animation. I like that stuff from the 70s, and I like it going back even all the way to like the 40s with of course the Fleischer Studio stuff with Superman and other stuff they were working on. This is a throwback to that came out in 2021, so a very recent movie. So I have no idea what to expect with this. This could be a cool throwback. This could be kind of unwatchable. I have no idea. If you've seen it in the comments, let me know. I'm hoping I really like it, and if so, I might try to track down the steelbook release for this, because for some reason, most of these Sword and Sorcery releases are getting steelbooks, and it would kind of fit right in if I picked that up. So that is The Spine of Night. Have not seen it yet. Cannot speak to it except for the trailer and the few screenshots I have here. It looks like a cool style. I just don't know how good the animation looks and how good the story is. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. And then another very obscure one, but this is a boutique label, kinda. And I had to throw it in because this is another absolutely Sword and Sorcery movie. It's You're the Hunter from the Future. You're the Hunter from the Future, which I think in and of itself is a spoiler. That title, I think, is a spoiler. I think the whole thing takes place in medieval Sword and Sorcery times, and yeah, it kind of gives it away in the title there. But this is a release from Mill Creek Entertainment, and it does have a slipcover. I picked this up at like a secondhand store. I think it was Second and Charles, so I don't have the original slipcover that came with it. I picked this up for like less than $5, so I just grabbed it. I think if you want that original slipcover, it actually might cost you a little bit on eBay, which is kind of ridiculous. All you get is an audio commentary on this, very bare bones release. This stars Reb Brown from the TV Captain America movies as this axe-wielding barbarian Conan ripoff character. And then I guess at the end you find out it's in the future. That's all I know about the film. I don't know anything else about it. Cannot speak to the quality of that one. So got a few more to watch. Got to watch Croll. Got to watch got to watch Spine of Night. But pretty good. Pretty good. I've seen almost all of the Sword and Sorcery movies that I have in the collection. Let me know if there's any other Sword and Sorcery films that you recommend or releases that you think are really good and that I should own in the collection. I have done a pretty good job of keeping up with it, but I know there's been more releases that I haven't even seen because there's so many boutique labels right now. It's a great time to be a collector, but it's hard to keep up. So I always look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments down below. And I'll be back with more videos about physical media and collecting very soon. But until then, keep collecting.